What's goody?
I was playing a game that I was
How dare
really
you?
excited
How
for.
dare you?
Can you, our wife? Can you please have one of the littles run up the computer so I can have the? Actually, you know what? I'll go get it. I'm gonna get the outline. 1 second.
Go ahead and come in. Camera's not on yet. It's making Karen. You stop. Bye. Thank you. Close the door, please. Please.
Excuse me? She said open it right now. Please?
At least you said please, I guess.
Open it right
We
now.
only got one in so far.
Abigail! Oh my gosh. Oh. You! Look, she kicked it all up in my face. I'm so. Stop moving. Mm-hmm. That's what you get. Where's the lid?
Here we got one watching. I think. Yeah.
Okay. Where's my phone? Where's the black lid? It's right there. Take the shoes off. Give me your shoes. Give me the lid. You're right. Don't do that. Okay. Take off your pants and your shirt. Put on your pajamas. No. No. Take it off. It's dry. It's not. It's dry.
You ready?
We got three in here. We can go ahead and start.
All right.
Are you guys going live?
Yeah. So, I don't know why they're in the background. Well, first I want to say thank you, Warlord. I do appreciate this, and everyone. Again, I really want to just see what 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 your thoughts are as it pertains to this. Ultimately, this idea arose from the concept of people being aware, right? Everyone always says you need to know your rights, and as awesome as that is to say, most people really don't, right? It's simple to say, hey, you should probably know, what you need to say to a cop, but people don't actually take the time to learn it. And this isn't a jab or a slight to anyone. It's really hard to do. Do you really want to take the time out of your day to, do? I mean, you should. It's hard to ask that. So, Warlord thought it would be a good idea to just kind of give, have something like this where it's, you know, if anyone remembers Dave Chappelle, he had asked a black guy, right? And they would just ask these random questions that people were too afraid to ask their friends. But like, I think the equivalent would be cool here. Ask an attorney or, you know, Law 101 or, obviously the title of this, Rules and Guidelines. And I mean, I want to briefly go into what I meant by rules and guidelines. Rules and guidelines is the idea, at least to me, for me, this whole concept of, yeah, there are rules in the legal system. There is always something that is put in place to regulate. But at the same time, there's some things that are just, guidelines. They're not strict. They're there, but at the same time, judges have judicial discretion, and we'll talk about stuff like that later. But I kind of wanted to use this as an opportunity to explain the difference to people, and the importance of understanding really, the laws of your country, explicitly and especially, but also, your state. So going into that, I got to address the elephant in the room. All right. This is not, well, let's go big to small. First things first, everyone knows America, right? Everyone knows there are federal laws. Federal laws. Now, there are also state laws. And with the supremacy clause, again, it's the supremacy clause is a clause in our U.S. Constitution which states pretty much fed laws take supremacy. They are more important than state laws, which is a fancy way of saying you got to adhere to fed law, period, right? Period. Now, some fed laws may not be enforced, and again, we will go into what I mean by that, but they're always there. So I will go from general to particular with these discussions. When it comes to Virginia, which is the state where I can practice law, I will go into particulars there. But if you are intrigued in your state and if you don't live in Virginia, I recommend strongly that you contact a legal professional there, an attorney there, or look up your own laws there, right? You don't need to have a JD and a license to practice law to know the law. That is definitely not how it works. To practice the law, yeah. To know the law, no. No one needs that, right? So, elephant in the room, supremacy clause, fed law takes Trump state law, it doesn't matter. Next thing is attorney-client privilege. Now, no matter what Warlord says, I'm not his attorney. No matter what he says. He could literally say anything. I am not his attorney. I'm his best friend, and he's one of my best friends, but as much as I'm joking, it's true. I'm not his attorney. Now, also, got to take a step further. I'm not anyone's attorney in this chat. All right? This is for educational purposes only. I always want to be a professor at some point. I love teaching. I love the law. Criminal law, for me, it was the realest law. And what I mean by that is, I wish it were the case, but I doubt we're going to be dabbling with millions. I wish that Warlord becomes a millionaire and I can, tell him why he should give me some of that money. Or I wish, my missus, has a very, very rich relative that kicks the bucket and leaves her mills. I pray. But it ain't probably happening anytime soon. Now, because of that, I was never fascinated with contract law. I had a great contract professor. Didn't care about it. I didn't care about, torts much or constitutional law. But for me, there was two fields of law that I loved because they were so real. Crim law and wills. Crim law is will because it doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are. If you do something wrong, it's coming. It's coming. And it's awesome to know what is considered wrong, right? I think that's the reason why crim is so interesting. It's because as clear as you think the law is, there's always exceptions. There's always defenses. There's always nuances that could allow for what you do to be perceived differently. Wills I love because no matter what, we're all dying. We all die one day. And where your stuff goes is dictated by that. So those are the reasons why I'm drawn to those particular fields of law. So, hey, we're going to go from generals to particulars when it comes to Fed, state. I am not an attorney. This is not me giving legal advice. This is for educational purposes only. Are we all good? I hope we're all good. Now,
How's the premise
big-
of still gonna go?
say again.
How's kind of the outline? Yeah, the outline, the premise of your show gonna go.
Ultimately, the point of this show is going to be, this episode is going to be the introduction. I'm going to lay out the bare bones of it. This show will then, every episode, every week, it's going to be addressing a new law. We're going to talk about it. We're going to first talk about what the law explicitly says. Then we're going to talk about what it actually means, because more often than not, those are two different things, right? Then we're going to talk about why it's a law. Do we agree with it? Then we're going to talk about the punishment for it. Then we're going to talk about scenarios as to when we think it is violated or when it isn't violated and figure out if we're right or wrong. And then we're going to try to understand if we are wrong, why we're wrong, and if we're right, why the facts apply to that statute. Every episode is just going to be, it's going to be that. We're going to try to work our way through the criminal justice system. And that was the plan.
Cool. My job
Okay.
is just to be your average everyday person. It's gonna ask some questions off of my feelings or what I think things should do or what I heard from my neighbor.
Okay. Well, how about this then, Mr.
After you get past
Listener to neighbor? What is the presumption of innocence? What do you think it means? Let's go with that. Let's start with the biggest thing. We're going to go with the standard for criminal cases, and then we're going to talk about this. But I think this is big. What is the presumption of innocence? What do you think that means?
I don't know what you asked me. You're using some big words, but I wasn't there. I ain't seen nothing. I ain't do it. You ain't seen me.
Okay. Well, we're getting there. Ultimately, what the presumption of innocence means is that going into every case, the defendant is presumed to be innocent. That means if they had to decide right then and there at the beginning of all this whether or not Warlord did it, Warlord, did you slap that puppy? If the case ended at the beginning, they would have to say you didn't do it. No. And the reason why is because the government carries a burden of proof. They need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did everything that was accused of you. Now, we're going to go into what they need to prove, but that standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is broken down very differently depending on who you ask, right? The Commonwealth's going to say the buzzwords, that doesn't require certainty. That doesn't. The defense will say that it's more than just suspicion. It's more than just that. So honestly, it depends on what side of the fence you stand, how you're going to explain reasonable doubt. But presumption of innocence means that's ultimately what the beginning of it all starts at. No matter what happens, D Hill, if you are accused of slapping a puppy, you are presumed innocent. The Commonwealth, the prosecutors have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you in fact did it. So that's what this is. This series is first about what is criminal law, and then each episode, D Hill, is going to be us talking about a law, whether it's assault, whether it's possession of Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substances, which I'll go into depth as to what that is, whether it's something simple like trespass, whether it's petty larceny, whether it's grand larceny, whether it's the stuff that we can't really say because we're trying to get Warlord monetized. It's going to be some of the, we're going to talk about all those things, right? And I'm going to break it down bit by bit. This is what the statute code is. This is how you can look it up yourself. We could all take a second to read it. Then we're going to talk our way through it. I'm going to be talking with Warlord. So this is a free crim law class for everybody. One second. Go. So now, There is a concept that's also as important as the presumption of innocence, and what it's called, Warlord, is jury nullification. Now, Warlord, what do you think? What does it sound like? Jury nullification. Break it down. What do you think jury nullification is?
I mean, it sounds like to me that them fools can't make a move. They can't do nothing. You nullify them.
Honestly, that's pretty close. So it's similar to the jury not being able to do anything, but it's actually taking it a step further. It's the jury choosing essentially to do nothing. So a real explicit definition is the jury refusing to return a guilty verdict, even where there is enough evidence to support it. So what people don't really understand, and what makes me always laugh when it comes to the concept of like jury, a lot of people avoid it. But if I'm being honest, juries are scared. You have a lot of power. Every person who has ever been a juror really understands that. That is a lot of power. There is a lot in your hands. There is the freedom of an individual is in your hands. So we should be baby lawyers and able to present ourselves in court if need be when all said and done. All right, I'll say this, D Hill. I'll say this. At the end of this, I don't even know how long this is going to take. For all I know, this is going to be done in like 3 weeks. I doubt it. But at the end of this, D Hill, you will know enough to confidently have a conversation with an attorney and them to, at the end of that conversation, look at you and say, this citizen knows what they're talking about. You may not be an expert, but let's be brutally honest. I am an attorney. I practiced law for years now. I am not an expert. There's attorneys who've been doing this for even longer than me, decades. They're not experts. The reason why is because an expert understanding of the law is not truly obtainable because there's so many nuances and because there's so many different perspectives that can be observed, because there's so many different things that come into play. So like, I'm going to get a map probably in a couple episodes from now, and I'm going to show you America. And then I'm going to show you, obviously we know of the states, but then there's something in America called circuits. America is divided into circuits, and each circuit, encompasses a couple different states, and each circuit has their own authoritative law, which is a fancy way of saying there's law that's binding in that circuit on top of the state law. So again, America is unique. America's criminal justice system is unique. Its legal makeup is interesting. It's going to require us to work through, though, and I think that's the reason why Warlord and I thought that this would be a good approach to take. So yeah, criminal law for free, no law school required. So
keep your money.
So now I am going to be laughed at because as I was preparing this outline, I tried to say this word, and Warlord's probably going to laugh at me because he's going to remember, like, yeah, this dude really did struggle to try to say this word, and I'm going to cheat. I think it's equipoise. Equipoise.
Equipoise.
Equipoise. I was close. Equipoise. Now, equipoise. So, Warlord, equipoise is a concept that is based and derived off of this idea of the presumption of innocence, right? So, you are accused of animal cruelty. Warlord slaps puppies, ladies and gentlemen. That's what he does. He's a puppy slapper. You slap puppies, Warlord. Warlord, you have me doing this. You are the example. You're a puppy slapper. So Warlord slaps puppies. And although he is accused of these charges, ladies and gentlemen, and as his criminal defense attorney, members of the jury, I want you to remember that there is a presumption of innocence with Warlord. He is presumed to be innocent, and that presumption carries with him through the entirety of the trial. Now, equipoise is taking it a step further. It says that the theory of doubt, right? Whether or not you did or didn't do it, the doubt that is required to be satisfied by the Commonwealth, it's equal to the innocence. So again, think about it as like, as much doubt as there is as to whether or not Warlord slapped that puppy, there's as much innocence associated to Warlord. So until that is addressed, Warlord can never be accused of slapping puppies, right? you have to rule in favor of Warlord until that theory of innocence has been shifted by the evidence supported by the Commonwealth, presented by the Commonwealth. So until you see pictures of warlords slapping puppies, until you hear, until you see videos of dogs and warlord just, Thanos gauntleting puppies, your honors and members of the jury, you can't rule that warlord's a puppy slapper. That is not what you can do. And that's what equipoise stands for. Now, with criminal law, I'm pretty sure you heard the word, equipoise, right? It's equipoise. It's an interesting word. It's got to be from Latin. I don't know, warlord. It gives me Latin vibes. But anyways, now everyone has heard how, well, he said I was charged with this particular crime, animal cruelty, because warlord slaps puppies. They say that, right? But they also say that, there's elements and that, I need to satisfy, each element. And what they mean is you have to display. Hey, again, I want to stress one thing, members of the jury and everyone watching. Regardless of the charges made against Warlord McNasty, he is presumed to not be a puppy slapper. That's not been resolved. There's no conviction that could be brought against Warlord and whether or not he's in fact a puppy slapper. And the reason why is because there are elements of the offense, right? For every criminal offense, there are elements that need to be satisfied. And some of those are the following, right? So the big thing is the conduct, which is, and with the fancy word is, it's from Latin. I knew it was from Latin. Yeah, I knew it was from Latin. So now, when it comes to the elements of a charge, there's roughly 5, right? One of them is the conduct, the actus reus. That is Latin. So the actus reus, was the act actually committed? Again, we're taking Warlord as the example. Warlord, you've been accused of animal cruelty. Was there an act? Did Warlord actually make an act that resulted in the harm? Now, we're going to get to the harm. I kind of jumped, but there's 2 other things, 2 big things. The mental state. Intentionality, mens rea. So that's a fancy way of saying, hey, look, yeah, you know what? Warlord might have hit the puppy, but did he mean to hit the puppy? Did he intend to hit the puppy? Did he, by swinging his hand, want to hit the puppy? So that's one of the big things. Now, obviously, the next element would be what? The result. Did he actually hit the puppy? When he swung, and did he actually make contact? Now, causation. Causation is probably the biggest and the hardest thing for criminal law. And the reason being is because if there was a different cause, like there's actual and proximate cause. And I'm going to go deeper into this later on. But ultimately what that means is you need to establish a link between the actual act and the results or the harm. It can't just be a movement happened and then harm occurred. They need to demonstrate, the Commonwealth, and most likely this is done through observation, but it needs to be more than just a mere act. It had to originate from Warlord, the him actually hitting the puppy. And obviously additional circumstances had to have been observed. Now, we've talked briefly about the criminal justice system, but there's many actors, right? Now, who are these actors? Well, let's start from small and we're going to go up. Now, Warlord. There's Warlord, the actor, the actual person who's allegedly accused of doing the cruel, horrific act of puppy slapping. Now, there are the police. Warlord was accused of it. The police go to his home, right? Click, clack. Warlord's arrested for animal cruelty. Now, you got the magistrate. Say again?
So they'll never take me alive.
Warlord, I want you to. Small caveat. Everyone, no matter what happens, if you are arrested, what is the most important amendment to remember? It's the 5th Amendment.
Call Andre. Get the
Well,
blick.
I mean, don't call me because I don't work. I am no one's attorney. I am no one's attorney. This is all for educational purposes only. But in seriousness, the Fifth Amendment is the most important amendment for everyone to remember. It is the right to not incriminate yourself. You have the right to remain silent. So, in all seriousness, please remember that. Look it up. Dig into the Fifth Amendment. It's very important.
Give a shout out to I Shall Outlive My Foes. So
Yes.
she likes it.
Oh, I shall outlive my foes. All right, a shout out. So I was informed by the actual person who I work for, owner of Hemp Cereal LLC, the boss. She told me to make a shout out. I did that. So, and let's go through the actors one more time. You got Warlord, who's accused of animal cruelty. You got the police who arrest Warlord for the actual alleged hitting of the animals, right? You got the magistrate who's going to determine whether or not you get bond. Now, we all kind of generally know what's bond, right? Bond is the process of whether or not you are released. And the amount, we're going into Miranda rights, we're going into all that. Don't jump the gun, authentically me. But yes, we're going to go into that. Miranda's big. Now.
That's MGO. She just changed the name.
Say again? Say again?
I was just saying that's MGO. You might remember that easier. Whatever. Nothing.
Okay. I don't know whose name you said.
I didn't
all right. So there's the magistrate who's going to determine if you get bond. And again, there's other things that we could talk about, but I'm going to keep it brief. Bond is just whether or not you have to pay to be released. Some people, that has its own complicated issues with it, because a lot of people think that's a way to, discriminate against the less affluent, the less financially stable. Again, a very interesting conversation for another time, but let's just bare bone. Warlord, actor, police arrest him, magistrate determines if he gets bond, then prosecutors. Prosecutors are the actual attorneys. They're my ops. They bring the charges. They try to prove every element of all the charges. In all honesty, they're great people. They're people who care and respect and love the law just as much as I do. Their job is to prove each element. My job is to beat one, and we're going to go into why I only need to beat one. But again, good people. Now, there is the judge, jury, and the court. Now, judge, most important person, most important figure. What the judge is responsible for is pretty much determining whether or not the Commonwealth's met that burden. The jury, obviously, small pinpoint difference. There's the jury, obviously the jury, and there's the judge. But as an individual warlord, when you are accused of animal cruelty, you can choose. Yeah, we really should. Explaining rights for low income, that is true. That's a good one. So, warlord, you can choose between whether or not you want to be judged by the judge or by a jury of your peers. And what that's called is you could request a bench trial, which means you're just going to have the judge determine whether or not you actually beat dogs if you're guilty of animal cruelty. Or you could have the jury determine that, a jury of your peers. So that's the reason why the judge and the jury are actors. And last but certainly not least, the victim. Commonwealth or criminal defense attorneys, we prefer to classify them as complaining witnesses. Obviously, complaining witness, victim, it's just, if you say it's victim, it's, I don't want to say semantics, but you get it. So, now, before we go any further, we're going to talk about one of the big things. Now, the MPC is the Model Penal Code. That's a fancy way of saying that's essentially.
What was it?
Say again?
Non-player character?
MPC, not NPC. MPC is the Model Penal Code. It was kind of the system. Now it's been rejected, but I think that was the framework that kind of foreshadowed how states would be functioning and operating legally moving forward. So now that we laid that out, there's 4 main theories as to why the system that we have in place is originated, right? Now when it comes to sentencing, which is, again, let's say Warlord was found guilty of animal cruelty, he hit dogs. There's 4 goals, generally speaking, 4 that are used to justify why we sentence people to periods of incarceration, rehab, requirements for courses to be completed, X, Y, Z. Now, there's retribution, there's deterrence, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. Now, Warlord, what do you think is retribution?
As far as towards who?
Just what does retribution generally mean usually?
Kind of like payback, get yours back.
Right.
I'm coming back with my own.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's absolutely correct. It's pretty much the whole concept of just deserves. So it's the theory that some judges, generally speaking, determine that a punishment should be equivalent to the amount of pain or suffering or damage that was caused or inflicted by the actor. So punishment's based on the notion that you did something wrong and the state deserves to get, again, it's comeuppance, it's payback, right? And it's boiled down, and there's a case for it, United States v. Madoff, that pretty much argues that wrongdoers deserve to suffer for their wrongdoing. Symbolism of the punishment is important to the court when considering the actual limitation for that punishment. So that's generally the idea, the concept behind retribution. Now, deterrence, Warlord. What is deterrence?
To deter something.
What does deter mean?
To make something, to either stop something, block something, not make it not want to do whatever it's doing.
Exactly. That's awesome. Now, I think a prime example for this is like things where people commonly do it, littering, right? Now, littering is something that's so commonly done that they had to find ways to deter its common frequency, right? So, Theodore Bremer, you brought up Vic. So deterrence, right? Littering is a prime example. Reason being is because it's commonly done. So in order to try to deter its use, what do people usually have? What's the punishment usually for, Warlord? What do you think? It's got to be something to make people not want to do it. Say again?
My country, we chop off their hands.
Say again?
Another threat across the high school.
1 second.
Okay.
Where is this from?
Across the KFC.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right. So the missus told me that there's another threat at a particular high school for another mass shooting. It's a high school. I don't want to say the name of the high school because obviously it might kind of signal where we are. So I'm not going to say that, but she just showed me another one. It's unsettling. But deterrence, right? The main goal, in theory, is they want to make a punishment that deters other people from committing the act. If you litter, we're going to try to make it a punishment that's substantial enough to make it so you don't want to litter again. It's going to be a good chunk of money, right? Something like that. Now, incapacitation. Warlord, this one I don't like talking about because this one's kind of dark. So incapacitation, what's the whole concept behind punishing people in a way that incapacitates them?
Send them to the moon.
Send them to the moon, or make it so that what? They're not able to do this really anymore. I think that's probably, I mean, you joke, but I was going to respond with that. Like, I think, yeah, it's taking their ability away to commit the act. So if you are a thief, yes, the common approach would have been, in a less developed time would have been, to chop off the hand.
Theodore, pepper spray would be a deterrent. So, he's talking about the deterrent. Never right. Excuse me. But wrong instance from what he's saying.
Oh, I would argue pepper spray is more of a means to try to like detain or actually get somebody under arrest. I don't think that they would just be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, there we go. See, there it is. I shall outlive my foes. A $150 fine. Yeah. So, and I'm thinking that's for littering. And I guess the rationale behind it is, again, they're trying to deter. They're trying to make it so that people are less inclined to do this act. And I'm going to bring up an example of such a of such an approach. So I'm going to look up possession in Virginia law, and I want to say it's a felony 5. It is a felony 5. So let's look up the punishment for a felony 5. I believe I know what it is. Yeah. So felony 5s, I want to say it's 1 to 5. It's 1 to 10. So for a felony 5, the amount of time that you can get, Warlord, is 1 to 10 years. So if you possess a Schedule 1 or 2 narcotic, you can be convicted and sentenced to up to, and this is word for word, the statute, which is 18.2-10, punishment for conviction of felony, subsection E, for a class 5 felony, a term of imprisonment of not less than 1 year and not more than 10 years, or in the discretion of the jury or the court trying the case without a jury, confinement in jail for not more than 12 months, and a fine of not more than $2,500 or both. That is an example of what? I'm going to argue, Warlord, this is probably a little bit, I think it's it's 3. It's 3 of them. We got one more to address, which is rehabilitation, but I think that definitely is retribution, deterrence, and incapacitation. It's retribution because I would argue society to a certain degree has a negative outlook when it comes to the consumption and or distribution of controlled 1 or 2 substances. I would argue that they want to deter it to such a degree, they want to make people realize that having possession of a Schedule 1 and 2 is not worth up to potentially 10 years of their lives. That's what I would argue. And lastly, incapacitate. They don't want people using. And obviously, the simple response to me saying, you're not going to use in prison is, they have it in prison. What are you talking about? Which I would argue they probably do. But the rationale mainly would be that if they were able to truly regulate what was going in and out of their facility, then they would be incapacitated. They would be unable to use, right? Now, rehabilitation. As a criminal defense attorney, this is the biggest one for me. That is what it's all about, truly. So, Warlord, what is rehabilitation about? And I don't mean to ask this in a condescending or patronizing way, but in your mind, in your opinion, what is rehabilitation?
Well, they try to fix me after they had me locked up for 18 years.
Right, exactly. You joke, but in all seriousness, that is it. We're trying to produce positive benefits for society. And we want to make sure that that offender returns to society as a good functioning member. The buzzwords, functioning member of society, and likely to not repeat. Now, the whole concept of recidivism or repeat, occurrences, that's the biggest thing that we try to address and mitigate, right? We don't want recidivism rates high. So I kind of wanted to really stress that. Now, I think we kind of hit everything that we were supposed to there. Do you have any questions at this point, Warlord? Exactly, Theodore. That's exactly. Warlord, what are your thoughts, buddy?
Oh, I don't know why I'm looking in the comments because it was actually something you said, but I didn't want to get too far off subject, but I forgot it already.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move forward then. Rehabilitation to help people with a mental health and addictive issue. Yeah. And it could be, and I shall outlive my foes is right. It could be, if as a criminal defense attorney, I could hone in on that and say, hey, look, the main goal, Your Honor, and this would most likely be done during sentencing or the mitigation portion, is, Your Honor, the main goal is to make him a functioning member of society. And giving him X amount of years in prison or jail does not do that. We have resources that could assist him with X, Y, and Z. And I shall outlive my fellows is totally right. That's ultimately one of the main points.
Y'all got any questions before he moves on? Excuse me, interrupt you real quick.
Oh, no, of course, man. Of course.
You can keep on talking, bro. We get the chat delayed, so if they have
okay, no worries. No worries, man. All right, so I'm going to talk about a few things. So there are some principles of criminal law that are kind of overlooked, but for me, I like to give them a little bit of attention. And again, I want to stress to everybody, the whole point of this is to lay that foundation. I want everyone to have a general understanding of why criminal law is created the way that it is. What's the point behind it? So one of the big principles is this. If a conduct is criminal, the thought is it must consist of something more than mental state. You can't just be guilty of a thought. Now, I think Warlord and I have had this conversation. Is this going to change with things like Neuralink? Is it? Like it and I guess my reasoning for asking such a question is, all right, everyone, real quick, put a pin in this. It seems fair at this point to say I should not be found guilty of bad thoughts, right? I mean, we have them. It would be peculiar to try to convict someone for horrific
what?
Bad thoughts.
Oh, bad thoughts. Bad thoughts.
Right.
Right.
Because mere mental state thoughts alone are not enough. It is a pillar of the criminal justice system, of criminal law. But we are advancing now to a point in society where we are able to display thoughts, right? We have people that are entirely paralyzed from the neck down with Neuralinks who are able to, through thought alone, control things and play games. And with enough technology, they'll be able to display in actual, like what they're thinking. And I guess my worry or my thought is, Warlord, what do you think? What if a person was able to display some very, very horrific content? Is that something that we should be able to hit them for? It's just, again, this is interesting. This is just we're asking a little question because as I read that principle, I'm like, I remember that, and I'm thinking, in a few years that might not be the case.
Right. So to display it, I mean, I guess it depends on what it is. Like that too. Well, in this country, okay, we're not talking about Canada or the UK where you can get arrested for calling somebody ugly. But in this country, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like what people could put. What's the word? Child. Hentai,
blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying the Japanese name up, and I think it's safe. But if you put little human orange up, then I think it's not safe. So I don't know, man. And like I was kind of joking around, it's like we're kind of getting into the realms of Minority Report at that point. The movie with for anyone that doesn't know, Tom Cruise, where they were pretty much arresting people before they committed crimes because they had some like 3 psychics or something like that, and they were arresting people before they committed crimes. But then they come to find out the system was flawed, and they were just using it to gain money for the government. They would essentially make the psychics dream of certain people that they were going to go commit a crime, and then they would go arrest them just to get money for the government.
Well, that would be another. We don't have much time. I mean, I could definitely, we could take that down a different rabbit hole. But yeah, Warlord, I think that would be. Yeah, we can. Well, again, we're gonna go. This is the first episode, and we're going through the foundations of criminal law. But yeah, man, there's some definite things that would give anyone a moment for pause when it comes to this system. But all right, that was pillar 1. Thought alone ain't enough. Next pillar, conduct alone is not enough. Now, it has to be more than mere conduct. Now, there are some things, and again, the reason why this is called rules and guidelines is because in actuality, it's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. Sometimes conduct is enough, right? Sometimes it's enough. But what this means in particular, and I think the pillar in this one is trying to explain, like assault and battery. So, in the criminal justice system, right, in crim law, assault and battery is the harmful and offensive contact of another individual, right? Boiled down. Now, that is not all contact. So, for example, Warlord and I are walking through the street. Warlord sees one of my kids trip and fall, and if Warlord, because he wants to pick up his niece, says, "Hey, come here," one of Andre's children, and he reaches to try to pick up my kid and bumps into somebody, they can't say, Officer, warlord just assaulted me. Why is that? Well, there's case law that says incidental contact is kind of a part of being a member of a functioning society, right? Warlord and I walk through the grocery store. We may bump into people if we're trying to grab the cereal or reach for a cold energy drink or do whatever. And I think what this pillar is trying to show is that in crim law, more likely than not, besides those very few exceptions, which we can definitely get into later on, you need more than just mere conduct. Mere act alone is not enough to substantiate a criminal charge. There must be a concurrence, and that's the big word. It's got to be the two. There's got to be the mens rea and the actus reus. You need to have intention and you need to have act. Hey, I shot all of my foes. Your Honor, he looked at me funny. That's offensive. So again, man, you guys make jokes, but you'd be surprised on what works sometimes. There's some crazy laws out there, and we're gonna get into them. So there needs to be a convergence. There needs to be a mental state, a mens rea, and an actus reus. What that means is when Warlord hits the puppy, he had to have actually swung and meant to hit the puppy. There must have been an observation, and the circumstantial evidence, right, must have supported the idea that he intended to do that. Because as a general rule, intention, without there being a declaration made by the actor, requires circumstantial evidence to prove it, right? Warlord told me in the past that, he doesn't like puppies, or Warlord was making faces at the puppy before he hit the puppy. And Warlord said, shoo, 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 before he hit the puppy. And when Andre stretched out, Warlord said, oh, I can't stand this dog. And when Andre turned to look at Warlord swung and hit the puppy. You know what I mean? There's got to be more to show intention. Now, the next principle. For crimes that are not regulating forbidden conduct, there must be a specific end result. So there must be a causal link or approximate cause. Now, again, the reason why this is a principle is because there needs to have been a connection between the act and the offense, right? And I guess the explanation for that is there can be an act and an intention, but if there's no causal chain, then you didn't do it. And I think the prime example is, all right, it is goofy. And I'm going to say it up front, Warlord, it's goofy. But let's say me and Warlord got into an argument. And I look at Warlord and I say, Warlord, you bullied me since we were in the Marine Corps and you're a mean person. And let's say I swung and tried to hit Warlord. And let's say Warlord started laughing. And when he laughed and Andre actually tried to throw a punch, he hit his head on the back of this wall, right? Now, I committed an act. I had the mental state and the intention to actually do it. And he was harmed, right? His head hit the wall. But my act isn't what caused for him to throw his head back. Him laughing did. So what this principle is trying to say is the convergence of a mental state and an act still needs to have been the cause for the harm that was ultimately experienced, right? So the last thing, or there's two more. A person who's engaged in a criminal act may only be subject to the legally prescribed punishment. And that's the fancy way of saying no cruel and unusual punishment, right? We got an amendment for that. I want to say it's the 6. Don't judge me, everyone, if I'm wrong. Amendment 6. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be super embarrassed.
It's not 8.
6th Amendment is what? No, speed. What's cruel and unusual? Cruel and or is 8? I think it's 8. Yeah, I think it's 8. 8, yeah. So the 8th Amendment is pretty much what this pillar is embracing. It's the whole idea that if you're charged with a misdemeanor, let's say a misdemeanor one, you can be punished up to 12 months, $2,500 fine, or both. You can't then be sentenced to 5 years, right? You can't. You can't do that. Or the legal system can't do that. You can't then get, a Class 6 felony amount of time for a misdemeanor.
No,
and that's ultimately what this principle is trying to embrace. Wait, holy S, if a cop pulls up and I laugh and slip like an idiot, can I sue? Asking for a friend. No,
Really just
Theodore. Hypothetically speaking, again, I am not giving legal advice. This is for educational purposes or only. I'm not trying to lose my job or my license, but hypothetically, you can't. That was a good one, though. Lastly,
Andre, I'm not gonna let nobody in without asking you. It's cool if they come in, but since we got 10 minutes, I'm gonna open up the panel for them to come in and answer questions. But
okay,
again, I
for
won't
sure,
let them
man.
up.
Okay. I want to say first and foremost, again, it's 15 minutes. I do apologize. I know Warlord and a few others really wanted this to be 2 hours. And I think it would be cool, but at the same time, I do have a boss, and this boss is very much also a Ravens fan, and she is adamant that we watch this game. Warlord, I know you're gonna hit me, but she can hit me now. She's right.
I'm not gonna hit you. I'm saying she hits you. I've seen.
I'm not saying.
Oh,
I do what I'm told. I do what I'm told.
Yes, ma'am. That is the link to join. I meant to do it the last 15 minutes, but I wasn't paying attention. I was getting caught up on what he was saying. That means you're doing good, bro.
I just wanted to say, everyone, again, I truly appreciate it. We're gonna work our way through the basic stuff, but I'm gonna do the two big things for me that I'm really excited for, and a lot of people. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. My big thing is to ask: is this felony or misdemeanor? I'm gonna name things. I'm gonna name crimes, and we're gonna give you guys maybe 30 seconds, 15 seconds to tell me if it's a felony or a misdemeanor. No cheating, by the way. And I want to see what you guys think. And
Google.
No Googles. And I want to see what you guys think. Tell me what you think. Is it a felony? Is it a misdemeanor? And then after that, after we talk about what it is, my favorite part of this entire little game is, should it be that? There's going to be some things we talk about that you're going to hear are misdemeanors, and you're going to say, why? Why? And there's going to be some things that are felonies. You're going to be like, that seems a tad excessive. And we're going to talk about it. So yeah,
really
let
quick,
anyone jump in, man.
Save your spot somehow, so you can continue next week.
I got you, buddy.
This fool said he's gonna run the whole block after this.
Hey, man, I'm all about it. Only thing I care about is just I hope people enjoy it, man. I love deep down. My wife is hilarious because she knows I became an attorney because I wanted to teach, and I didn't want to get my PhD because it takes 5 years. So this is what I did. Like, honestly, she knows why I really became an attorney. It's because I didn't want to spend 5 years trying to get my PhD in philosophy. So I really want to teach. I want to be a law professor someday. So this is good practice. And I need to highlight this, and it's right here. Wait, oh no. There it is. And is it there? I don't know.
Appreciate that. I live my pose.
Felony or misdemeanor? That's exactly. Really, honestly, D Hill, I'm gonna be real. I want D Hill playing because D Hill's a good guy. D Hill's a good guy, and I'm serious. I'm excited for this. I think it's gonna be fun. But yeah. If no one, hey, I hope. Thank you for those kind of words. I really do. That's the goal. My goal is I want to teach. I mean, obviously, I wanted to practice law so you can have that credibility. And I wanted to just do it just long enough until I could, teach at a undergrad or teach at a junior college or a 4-year. The reason why I want to do a junior college is because for me, that's where I was inspired. There was a few professors, Professor Andre Jensen and Timothy Clark was at I remember. Timothy Clark was at UC Berkeley, great professor, but Professor Andre Jensen and Professor Nicholas Deal were the two professors that inspired me to go down this road. And I owe them so much, and they're great. They're great men. I appreciate that. Thank you. If no one wants to jump into the panel, that's totally fine. I do want to talk about one last principle. I want to talk about this one because for me, this one's big. The last principle, and then that we're going to go into, I'm going to save it and we're going to go into what we're going to cover next week. The last principle is a big one. And the whole principle is that an action or a conduct is not criminal unless it's forbidden by law, providing advance warning. That's a fancy way of saying that you can't be retroactively found guilty for an offense, right? And I think the reason why that's big is because that goes to show that notice is huge. I don't have my panel voice right now. Oh, stop! Come on.
You remember what you said this morning?
I don't have
know
a
if you saw
talking
that.
voice. My voice. People hate my voice. You can do it. You get on here. But
Open
ultimately, what I want to
she
stress.
has a very deep voice. That's why she claims.
Yeah, and my voice is horrific, so you're totally fine. But again, the whole point of this last principle is that the system that is in place, and I know many would argue with me on this, but give me this one. The system is not out there to find people guilty of everything. That is not the intended goal of the criminal justice system. Warlord, I knew you were going to do that. Which is why I wanted to be forthcoming as possible. The whole mindset when it comes to the criminal justice system is we want law-abiding citizens that are abiding by the law because they know what is right and wrong because the law says it's right and wrong. Now, this principle says we're not going to say your conduct is criminal until you are aware that your conduct is not authorized and not allowed, and then you do it. So off the top, remember, principle 1, can't be found guilty of a mere mental state. Principle 2, generally, mere conduct is not enough. 3, you need both. A convergence of mental state, mens rea, and an act, actus reus. 4, there needs to be harm to the society. It can't just be, and this is kind of the gray area because some people will say, well, how does this harm society? And then we're going to have that conversation later. But principle 4, your conduct needs to harm society. We'll go into that later because, there's some that may disagree with this. 5 is your action needs to have been the actual or proximate cause of the harm that was occurred. Principle 6, I thank you. Shall outlive my foes. I disagree, but I thank you. Your punishment or your crime can only be punished with a legally prescribed punishment. So misdemeanors get punished according to the limits of misdemeanors. Felonies can only be punished by the class of felony. Felony 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. Lastly, you need advance warning before your conduct is considered to be criminal. So if Warlord is elected president today and tomorrow he says no bald bearded attorneys, he can't find me guilty for that until after that law is put in place. I try to practice law, right? Simple as that. So you need to be aware that the act is criminal, it's not authorized, and then you have to do it. So that is it. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, please reach out to myself or Warlord. I truly do love the law. I care about it. It's awesome. It's difficult. And I've had moments where I've definitely sat in a room crying because you think you understand something and then you get blindsided. But I think that's the beauty that comes with the law. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to pick at. There's always something new to understand from it. So just briefly, we're going to go next week. If you guys are still interested in it, again, if not, no problem. I'm going to be teaching Warlord. If you are interested, we're going to talk about the concept of the rule of lenity. Ooh, that's a good one. Vagueness in a law and what that actually means. Retroactivity of laws, because again, this is rules and guidelines. Is retroactivity a thing? Sometimes. Interpreting a statute and interpreting how the common law works with statutes, because we're going to talk about common law. Because if you think the law is crazy now, there's law that is put in place, right? That is, proposed and I'm just a bill. There's that law. And then there's also the law that is a byproduct of cases. So a case that establishes new case precedent, which is its own law to a certain degree. So we're going to go into that. And again, I really do appreciate this opportunity. I hope you guys, know first and foremost, I do love this. This is fun to me. So again, any questions, comments, concerns, you let me know. lastly, we're going to go into more of the act requirement, actus reus. But Warlord, I always say this to you, man. I do appreciate this. This is fun. For me, it's all about just if everyone knew about the law, that would be awesome. I know some people say, well, if everyone knew about the law, then there would be no need for attorneys. And for me, that's cool, man. I don't care.
Bro,
I care more about
this ain't-
everyone knowing how the law works.
This ain't my channel, Theodore. This is a network. This is our
No,
channel.
this is Warlord's channel. This is Warlord's channel, and he
His
pays
channel as
me.
much as mine, bro.
No, this is
He-
Warlord's
he-
channel,
he
and he
told me
pays
to
me in
become a
protein
host.
powder. Don't lie to the people, Warlord.
Protein powder and
Look.
spankings and comic books.
That's
Spankings and comic books and protein powder.
that's crazy. This is recorded. Please clip that. Whoever we hire as an editor, clip that, please. But Body Man, nothing but love and respect for you, my friend. I do appreciate it. I'll talk to the boss to figure out if she's cool with an hour. I know that 3 to 4 hours of panels and streaming, she's probably not a big fan of, but we'll see what we can do. And again, man, I hope you're streaming tomorrow. Are you going to stream Space Marine too?
I'm about to go play Warhammer right now. I'm about to play Warhammer right now as soon as we get off. You got a game to watch with your wife, bro.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Ravens fan, but I honestly don't care about them right now. I want to go out there and fight for the Emperor. I'm so angry right now. I hate everything. So in Alaska, it's illegal to serve alcohol to a moose. Oh my gosh. All right. Before I leave.
Don't get in trouble.
All right.
Don't get in trouble.
No. Before I leave, I was going to say this too. I want it. I'm going to write it down actually. Oh, I have to upload a Word doc. I'm going to write it down. So we were going to do felonies and misdemeanors, right? But we're also going to do crazy law. And what I wanted to do with that was what the gentleman just mentioned. I want to go and spend, a little bit of time looking up some of the crazy laws that are still in effect, man. I know we have them. Each state has a crazy, ridiculous law. And I want to actually go through them. I know Virginia has some wild ones. When I was studying for the bar, there's some of them that are like, why? Who decided this? But I do want to do that next. Thanks for the idea, man. I want to give it whoever put that comment, shout out, man, because that was I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do felonies and misdemeanors. So I think that's awesome. Yeah, I'll live my foes. Thanks, buddy. That's big. So, all right. On that note, I'm not trying to be grounded. I'm trying to, be able to try to do things this weekend. So I'm dipping. Warlord, nothing but love, brother. I appreciate it. This was truly fun. And thank you, man. Thank you. And if you play tomorrow, let me know. Let's stream it.
Okay.
Later, buddy.
Peace. Thanks, y'all, for joining us for Andre's first show. We appreciate it. I know he appreciates it. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna have to take notes next time. But I got a new video game to play, so I will catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all.